Hello and welcome to the Autism, ADHD and Us 3 podcast with me, Jenny Lucas. We'll be talking all things neurodiversity, including late diagnosis, parenting and everything else that comes in between. This podcast is not intended to be diagnostic. I am not a doctor. These are our personal experiences peppered with research and occasionally the experiences of others. The podcast is intended as a supportive guide through the experience of parenting neurodiverse children as a late diagnosed person, hopefully bringing some relatable stories and laughs along the way. Any relevant links will be in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to season 3 of Autism, ADHD and Us 3. It's me here, Jenny. Hi, hello if you're watching, and hi, hello if you're listening. It's been a lovely little summer break, but I am glad to be back with you on the podcast this month. And to start off season 3, I thought we could talk about friendships, and friendships as a late diagnosed ADHD person, and friendships for our kids, and how our children might experience friendships a little bit differently. This is all like personal anecdotal stuff. As it says in the introduction, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a clinician, so my experience and the experience of my children is not going to be the experience of all ADHD people around the world. But hopefully it gives you a little bit of relatability and value and a bit of validation as well if you identify with any of the things that we're going to be chatting about today. So, welcome back. And speaking about friendships, it's been a topic that's been on my mind recently, actually. I've written about it in the book quite extensively. Like there's a whole chapter on relationships in the book. Don't know if I've mentioned before. I'm writing a book. I've written a book, actually. It's done. It's coming out next month in October, at the end of October, and I am going to do a whole episode about it in November, so don't worry. It's going to be plenty of time to talk about it. But it's a big chunk of your life as a human being, but also it's a big chunk of sort of rediscovery as a late diagnosed ADHD person, or so I have found. Almost like renegotiating relationships and refiguring out relationships, whether they be sort of casual acquaintances, colleagues, friends of differing hierarchical levels, I have discovered, or even like intimate close relationships, relationships with family, like they all kind of come under the spotlight when you have a late diagnosis. And I will come on to talk about that a little bit in a bit, but I wanted to just talk about the experience of my children and friends first of all, and see whether if you've got kids, this is relatable, or if you remember this kind of stuff from being a child yourself. As a child myself, I always distinctly remember not having the sensation of feeling like an alien. I know like quite a lot of people feel, they describe their experiences of sort of feeling like an alien. I felt different from the other kids that I lived around. So, you know, there's kids around where I grew up and we'd like go out and play. And I always knew that I felt not quite one of them. And I kind of just put that down to just not being like as streetwise as some of the kids around me. But it turns out I was neurodivergent. And when I think about my own children, they've always had really interesting relationships with others. So both of them, certainly at primary school, have had kind of started off with one-on-one friendships and had a really good like one friend. My oldest was always described right from when she went to preschool as like the social butterfly. Everybody wanted to be friends with her. She didn't necessarily sit in like one friendship group. And as she got older and went further through primary school, where she went to school at primary school, it was just one form entry, so there was just one class of them. There wasn't an awful lot of people to mix with. And she got on with everybody in the class, but there was like one group of girls that she really kind of wanted to be a part of, and was, to a greater or lesser extent, did form some nice friendships out of that. And then at secondary school, she's actually changed secondary school. So she started in one school and was there for a year, and it was awful. And I may well at some point in the future just do a whole podcast episode on that experience, because that was really awful for her as an individual, but for us as her parents to try and support her through and watch, because it just, it wasn't a great year. And friendships was the area that kind of everything else fell apart from. So because she didn't have any stable, close friendships, everything else in that academic year was too much, too overwhelming, and she got very little out of it. Converse to that, she is now in a school where she is settled and does have friendships, and as a result of that, her engagement with school and her, I'm not going to say her academic ability, but like her ability to show her academic ability, engage, has massively increased. And she's had, so far, touch wood, now a pretty amazing secondary school experience. And that has been down to having this close group of friends whom she doesn't have to mask with. She can kind of just go out and be herself with. And it's like really genuine connection. And I love that for her. I'm really pleased that she has it. And my little one is quite similar. She's sort of started off with like one-on-one close friendship with one person. That then changed as she sort of went through the early stages of primary school, and she now has like an absolute best friend who is her bestie, like a ride or die BFF. And they're really close. And over time, she was a funny one. She classically couldn't understand other children being children. So she struggled with the concept of children like telling on each other or like playing pranks on each other, or like that kind of like, it's almost like mob mentality that kids can get into when they're all like chanting the same thing or taunting a person. Or she was just like, what is this? Why are they doing that? Like she totally didn't get it, and she still doesn't. But she is, as a person, if you ever met her, you'd know what I meant by this, but she's just effortlessly cool. I don't know who she gets it from. It's not me or her dad, but she just came out cool. She's just, no effort has to go into it. She just oozes cool. She has aura, I think the young ones would say these days. And so people want to be friends with her, but she is a little bit selective about who she wants to spend her time with. Although over time, her ability to sort of mix in with the rest of the class and sort of tolerate or get on with other children has grown. But she struggles sort of in new settings, and both of them do actually, and I totally identify with this because that's me too. She struggles to like initiate anything in a new setting. If somebody comes up and starts chatting to her and she's kind of interested in what they're saying, then that will initiate like friendship and conversation and whatever. She'll feel comfortable with that, but she won't be the person to do that. And I identify with that too. I have that sort of sensation of like needing to be invited in, but like a vampire actually, but needing to be invited into conversation or into group activities or into something, into friendship circles, I suppose, because otherwise it feels like I'm imposing myself and inserting myself into a situation where it wasn't necessarily invited. And I don't know whether that's a rejection sensitivity thing, whether that is like trauma from previous experiences. It could be all kinds of different things, but I still to this day have that, you know, in my 40s. And that has made it quite difficult going forward in me finding friendships which are sort of long term or deep and meaningful. And I find that really fascinating. And I think if there was one area of life that I think I'll probably never ever figure out, no matter how hard I try, I think it is friendships. And why some friendships fail, why some friendships are enduring, why you can feel really comfortable in somebody's presence and not in somebody else's, why you can like somebody for a little while and then not like them anymore. And I've always had this kind of, my husband would call it like this naive streak. He doesn't mean it like in a bad way, but in a kind of like innocent, always thinking the best of people, sort of, kind of, quite trusting, quite optimistic in some senses, view of the world and the view of people. And I've kind of never really understood that concept of when you see somebody and you chat to them and you get on with them and the conversation seems to flow quite well and you like seem to have similar views about things, why that then doesn't constitute a friendship on an enduring basis, on like a long-term basis. And it's interesting, I saw something once a few years ago now, it was just after my diagnosis, I think, about the way that neurotypical brains like, quantify friendships, and they fall into different categories from like acquaintance to, you know, all the way down to like ride or die, BFF. And I have never really categorised friendships in that way before. That's not to say that I haven't felt closer to some people than others. I have, of course, and wanted to be friends more with some people than others, of course. I'm not like a golden retriever who just wants to be friends with everybody except huskies. I'm not going to get into that here. There are stories to tell in that respect, but I digress. But yeah, I find that always quite puzzling. I think it's because at the core of myself, I am a good person and I'm funny and I like to help people and be supportive and I really like to know people and I really like to be known. And so if I'm in a situation where I feel like there's a really strong friendship developing and then nothing comes of it, I'm perplexed. Because you kind of sit there and you go, what did I do wrong? Or like, why did that fall apart? And I really, with my AuDHD brain, the autistic part in particular, I really like to get to the bottom of things. So I can be like, that's what happened. That's why that didn't work, or whatever. And in lots of instances with relationships and with friendships with other people, you don't get that closure and that satisfaction. So you don't get that learning to then like put into future situations. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's just me analyzes things like that. I don't know, but I find it absolutely fascinating. And as somebody who's now in her 40s, I've kind of over time felt like the ship was sailing in terms of like, well, will I ever have like a group of like besties? Not necessarily that I want to go away on girls' holidays with or anything like that. I'm not that kind of guy. But just it's almost like it's like a dream, isn't it, to have people who know you inside out and love you still. Like that's a big one, to have people that know you inside out and just love you anyway, despite knowing you inside out. And like, love the bones of you and really care for you and want the best for you at all times. And you them, like the kind of friendships that you can just have comfortable silences in. Like I often sort of muse over what it would be like to have besties around where you could just like go around their house and they didn't care that you were there, and it wasn't like, oh my god, you've really inconvenienced me because now I have to clean, now I have to tidy, I'm in the middle of doing this thing and now I have to entertain you. Like I want to have friends where I can go around and they can just like keep doing what they were doing and I can just be there, or vice versa, and we can just be in our spaces. Like not all the time, obviously. Like I know I need my own space and stuff too, don't get me wrong, but to just have that comfortable companionship where you're not thinking, oh my god, my house is a shithole, I really need to mop the floors. I hope they're not looking at all the crumbs, because they don't give a shit. They know how hard you work to just exist on a daily basis. So it's fine. They accept all of you for who you are. And I don't know how you find that. Genuinely, like I have not come on to create this podcast to give you advice about how to find friendships. Like, how do you find that? Now, that said, in the last couple of weeks, there have been a couple of people who have like almost stepped out of the shadows, if you like, stepped forward in my life, whom I could see potentially could become closer in my relationships with them as friends. And yeah, which would be nice. But it's an interesting moment in terms of like, I don't know how many of you else out there listening to this that have identified with anything that I've said already can think kind of, how do you do it when you're in your 40s? Oh, go and join a club. Go and get out there and do things. Like, that's how you meet people. Go and volunteer. Like, come on, I'm clinging on to life. I'm clinging on by my fingertips. You know what I mean? Who in the right mind has capacity to go out and like join a club and do stuff when they are working, running a business, parenting, running a household, staying alive, keeping everybody's pants clean? Don't get me wrong. When the children are older and need less of me to facilitate their routine and things are more established and flowing with the business, things are kind of ticking along there and don't need so much of me all the time, I can absolutely see a time where I have got more capacity to go and do these kinds of things. Love to join a choir, love singing, like singing music's my passion. But yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, it's like if you've seen any of those memes about like you need an extrovert to be your way into stuff. You need an extrovert to adopt you and take you out to parties so that you can sit in the kitchen and play with the cats and dogs and drink the food and drink the food and drink the drinks and eat the food. Yeah, I need some extroverts to adopt me, please. So that's been what's been on my mind of late is friendships and how fascinating they are. to sort of observe from the outside. You know, you see people like going away on holiday together and you think, I'd probably fall out with somebody that I went on holiday with, or I'd be so damn uncomfortable. I wouldn't enjoy myself because I'd be constantly like masking the whole time. Like I want to go, I want to have friends that I don't have to mask with. You know what I mean? That we can have disagreements about stuff and it's fine. We can set boundaries with each other and it's fine because you know that when you've set a boundary with that person, they're still going to love you at the end of it. So how does one do that? I'd love you to get in touch with me and let me know your thoughts on this, whether that is in the comments of wherever you are getting your podcast, or whether you want to hit the mail button in the show notes and get in touch with me that way, or whether you want to find me on social media and leave a comment on one of my videos that I've done about this recently. I don't mind, but I find the whole thing a bit of an alien concept. Not that I feel like an alien, but just like, how does the dynamics of that work? How do you sustain it? How do you do that when you're like, how do people meet new people? I've had plenty of like work colleague friends that I thought were friends, and then it's kind of never developed beyond being in that workplace. And I find that really confusing because you share some wild experiences with people that you work with, depending on what your job is. Like in teaching, and in all the facets of teaching, whether you're, you know, for me, I was a music teacher and I was a pastoral lead, and I did events and I did trips and I did shows. Like there was a whole lot of stuff and connections that were made outside the classroom with these other adults who were tasked with the nurture and development of these young people. And, you know, that can be a really bonding experience, especially with some of the, my God, kids come out with the funniest stuff. And so, you know, I really did think I had built some proper good friendships out of that. And then, you know, you move on from a workplace to another workplace and it just kind of disappears. So anyway, that is my musing for the first episode back of season 3. Can you believe it? I've got some new stuff coming up. Not necessarily, well, in the podcast too, yes, I've got some more guests, which I'm excited to bring to you over the next few months. As I said, in November, I will be talking about my book because I will finally be able to actually fully talk about it. I will hopefully have a copy of it that I can show you in person if you're watching the podcast. So that is really exciting. And there's lots of exciting things going on with at the moment. It's getting that processed and doing cover design and like text layout and stuff on the inside. It's really quite interesting, having never written a book before and had it published. I've also got a webinar which is going to be coming out in November, which is going to probably be called The Magical Vortex of Giving a Shit About Yourself. Because of course it is. Because that is something in relation to the book. And so if you're interested in that and you're not already on my mailing list, hello, what are you doing? Then hit up the link in the show notes where you can sign up to be part of my mailing list and you will get information about that. And if you are not already on my book wait list and you're going, Jenny, I want to know when the book's coming out. How do I possibly win a signed copy of your book before it comes out? Let me tell you, friend, you need to get on a wait list for my book. The link to that is also in the show notes. So if you go and click on that and sign up straight away, you will be entered into a draw to win a copy of the book. Now, I should disclaimer this because people obviously can listen to this at any time. So this is if you have signed up to the wait list for the book by the 20th of October 2025. So I'm sorry if you're listening to this after that time. You can no longer enter the book wait list to win a copy of my book. I'm sorry. But if you just so happen to be listening to this before that date and you're not on the list, get on the list. And if you're already on the list, then you're already in with a chance. Well done. I will be contacting that person when I do the draw a little bit closer to the time. And then over the next course of the next academic year, because I am still a teacher at heart, I've got a membership coming. I've currently got my free Facebook community at the moment, the Empowered AuDHD community. If you're not already in there and you would like to find some like-minded people to just chew the fat with and to share experiences with and get in there. I'm also going to be running a program from January 2020, which is going to be a 12-week program, which is all about exploring what life is like after a late diagnosis, kind of along the themes of the book. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, get on my newsletter list. Because all of my information comes out to the people in my newsletter first. And if you're not following me on social media, it will come out there too. So I've got some amazing grand plans for the next year, and you are invited to come along with all of it. if you wish. And if you have found this episode interesting or relatable, and you think somebody else would find it interesting and relatable, please feel free to share it with them. And if you would be so kind as to leave a review, I know I say this every time and nobody does, but if you could leave a review of some description wherever you are listening to this podcast, it would be really great to push it out and get some more engagement with people, because it is growing and we have got more people listening every month, but it could grow bigger and there could be even more people getting access to the support from this podcast every month. And so that is all from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this little ramble in the first episode back of season 3. I am still planning on the podcast coming out the first Sunday of every month. There may well be the odd bonus episode every now and again, depending on who I get lined up to come and talk to us. But I hope you're well. If you've got anything at all you would love to share, then please get in contact with me through the links in the show notes. And other than that, I will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.